You know, some mountains are just big piles of rock and ice, but every once in a while, you find one with a story. A story so powerful it completely changes how we see the world. And today, we're talking about one of those mountains, the Matterhorn. It's an incredible story of obsession, national pride, and one single moment where triumph turned into the most infamous tragedy in the history of the Alps.
I mean, just look at it. It's got to be one of the most beautiful peaks on the planet, right? A perfect, almost impossible-looking pyramid of rock that just towers over Zermatt, Switzerland. But here's the thing. That beauty has always hidden a very deadly side. Back in the mid-19th century, this was it. This was the last great problem of the Alps, the final unconquered summit that had beaten back every single attempt.
So let's set the scene. It's the 1860s, and climbing the big alpine peaks is the thing to do for adventurous gentlemen. Mont Blanc? Done. The Jungfrau? Climbed it. The Weisshorn? Yep, that one too. They'd all been conquered. All of them. Except for one. The Matterhorn just stood there, untouched, like this terrifying spike of rock that was basically laughing at the very idea of anyone climbing it. This wasn't just another challenge. It was the final, fearsome prize.
And nobody, and I mean nobody, wanted that prize more than this man, Edward Whymper. Now, he didn't even come to the Alps to climb, not at first. He was an artist, sent to sketch the mountains. But then he saw the Matterhorn, and that was it. The mountain became a total, all-consuming obsession. For 5 years, he tried and failed over and over again. It got so intense that even his rivals were saying his life seemed to depend on it.
But here's the twist. Whymper wasn't the only one with his eyes on the prize. In 1863, the Italian Alpine Club was formed, and for them, climbing the Matterhorn was all about national honor. An Italian mountain, they thought, should be climbed by Italians first. So they started gathering the best guides in the country for their own attempt. All of a sudden, it wasn't just a climb anymore. It was a full-blown race.
Now, for years, everybody, Whymper included, was trying to climb the mountain from the Italian side. From down below, it kind of looked a bit more manageable, you know? But that was a total illusion. The rock was awful, and it was way more difficult than it looked. The real secret, it turned out, was the Hornley Ridge on the Swiss side. It looked like a vertical wall, totally impossible, but looks can be deceiving.
Okay, so it all comes to a head in July of 1865. Whymper shows up in Italy, ready for another go, only to find that the Italians have hired every single guide in the area, totally shutting him out. He is furious. So he races over the border to Zermatt in Switzerland, and there, in the famous Hotel Monte Rosa, he literally bumps into another group of English climbers planning their own attempt. Right there in the hotel, they make a decision that will change history. They decide to join forces.
And what a team it was. A 7-man party, all in it together. You had our obsessed artist, Edward Whymper, a young nobleman, Lord Francis Douglas, the very experienced Reverend Charles Hudson, and his friend, Douglas Haddo, who was, well, let's just say he was pretty new to all this. And then you had the pros, the superstar French guide Michel Croz, and a local father and son guide team, Peter Togwalder Sr. and Jr.
On July 13, 1865, it's go time. The race is officially on. As the Italian team starts grinding their way up their side of the mountain, Whymper's new crew sets off for the Hornley Ridge. Something huge was about to happen.
And Whymper's massive gamble on that impossible ridge? Oh, it paid off. Big time. The ridge that looked like a sheer wall from below turned out to be, as Whymper himself said, a natural staircase. They were absolutely flying up the mountain. They camped high on the ridge, started again the next morning, and by 10 a.m., they were already at 14,000 feet. The summit was right there waiting for them. At 1:40 in the afternoon on July 14th, the guide Michel Croz and Edward Whymper scrambled up the last few feet of snow. They'd done it. After all the failures, all the obsession, they were the first human beings to ever stand on the summit of the Matterhorn. And in this incredible moment of triumph, they looked down the Italian side and saw the rivals, way, way below them, totally stuck. The Italians looked up, saw them, and just turned around and went home, defeated.
But this story, it doesn't end with a victory celebration. They spent about an hour on the summit, taking it all in, and then the 7 men started their descent. The mountain had let them get to the top, but it was not finished with them. Not by a long shot.
I remember Douglas Haddo, the inexperienced climber. He'd struggled a bit on the way up, but on the way down, things got really serious. The lead guide, Michel Croz, was actually having to physically place Haddo's feet for him on every single step. And all 7 men were roped together for safety, a single human chain.
And then
The unthinkable happened. Haddo slipped. He slammed into Kraz, knocking the powerful guide clean off his hold. The momentum was unstoppable. It ripped Reverend Hudson from the rock, and then Lord Francis Douglas, a horrific chain reaction. One slip, and now 4 men were falling through the air.
And that thin, fragile rope connecting the falling men to the 3 survivors, it snapped. Whymper and the 2 Togwalder guides could only cling to the rock face in absolute horror as they watched their 4 companions disappear, falling over 4,000 feet down to the glacier below. In a flash, the greatest triumph in the history of mountaineering had become its greatest tragedy. The aftermath was just brutal. As the 3 survivors staggered back into Zermatt, a terrible rumor started spreading like wildfire. People started saying that Pieter Togwalder Sr., the guide who was right in the middle of the line, had cut the rope to save himself and his son. Can you imagine? It was a dark, awful suspicion that would haunt his family for generations. But an official investigation found no evidence of it at all. In fact, Whymper himself had looked at the broken rope and realized they'd made a fatal mistake. In their haste, they'd used the oldest, weakest spare rope they had to connect the lead climbers. And this is that very rope. You can see it today in the Matterhorn Museum, a silent witness to the tragedy. And you have to remember, this was the harsh reality of early mountaineering. Later on, tests on similar ropes from that era confirmed that they broke under a strain of about 300 kilograms, which is roughly the weight of 4 falling men. Togwalder didn't cut the rope. It just wasn't strong enough. It was a simple, tragic, and absolutely fatal mistake.
Now, you'd think a disaster this horrific would scare people away from the Matterhorn for good, right? Well, it did the exact opposite. Whymper's book about the climb became a huge bestseller, and it sparked this global fascination with the Alps. So people kept coming. But the mountain, well, it kept claiming its price.
Since that first fatal descent in 1865, more than 600 climbers have lost their lives on its slopes. That makes it one of the deadliest mountains in the entire world. And yet, every year, thousands more arrive in Zermatt just hoping the clouds will part so they can catch a glimpse of the legend. And that paradox, right there, that stunning beauty mixed with lethal danger, that's the heart of the Matterhorn story. Just makes you wonder, what is it about this place that continues to call to us? To explore more alpine history and book your own journey, visit peterontour.com.